We need people to come forward and expose what's going on. We need whistleblowers. I have one with me. Joining me now is Steve Friend. He came out as an FBI whistleblower after he witnessed firsthand what was happening in the wake of January 6th. He is also a senior fellow at the Center for Renewing America, an organization that has a strong background in fighting weaponization of government. Steve, thank you so much, as usual, for joining us. God bless you.
Great to be with you.
So I want to start with the news of the day. What has happened to our own reporter who was arrested today? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have quite a few. Steve Baker's a friend of mine as well. And I'm just completely taken aback by the fact that the FBI and the weaponized government that we're seeing every day is using all the levers of power to make the process the punishment for someone like Steve Baker, who's had Damocles' sword hanging over his head for the last 3+ years. The FBI now saw fit to use a judicial complaint to bring him into custody, which necessitated his actual arrest. They couldn't actually have him come and surrender via some sort of summons. They made the process the punishment, and they've contrived a way to bring him into custody and charge him with crimes that he has not committed. The agents, like Craig Noyes, who works in the Raleigh, North Carolina field office, are just good Germans at this point. They are doing the bidding of the political left in order to push this narrative that people like Steve, who are just obeying the Constitution, doing what a journalist does, and then putting them in a cage so that they can make their pension.
Why would they tell him to show up in T-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops? Is that usual? The FBI tells people to do that?
It's not. The fact that they did that, I'm sure, was to sort of make the process easier for them, because they would argue that there's a security concern. They need to take his belt and his shoelaces. But it's to just humiliate Steve, to put him into a cold holding cell and have him sit there in shorts and bare feet so he can just be a little bit uncomfortable, so they can rub his nose in it. This is, again, my complaint that I go back to for the last year and a half. It is not the duty of the FBI to be the judge, jury, and the executioner. It is their duty to follow the process, a fair process. You gather the facts, you present them, and then that person has their day in court. But what we're seeing now is the FBI is intent on making the process the punishment, and they're interested in getting the W, whether or not that's a punishment at court or afterwards with a conviction.
So was this local FBI? Were these Texans that were doing this today, or did they come in from Washington?
Well, Steve was investigated by the Charlotte field office, the Raleigh, North Carolina resident agency. But as part of his surrender, he surrendered to the Dallas field office because of its proximity to where he works there at the Blaze Studios. So he went to the actual Dallas office. I doubt that his case agent actually came to arrest him. I'm sure it was a local agent and then took him to the magistrate. But still, the signee on the criminal complaint for his arrest is Special Agent Craig Noyes, who works for the FBI Charlotte office, the Raleigh, North Carolina resident agency.
I saw a picture of him earlier today going in the backseat of a car, going to turn himself in. And he has a lapel pin, and I recognize it from the flag that is behind you. What does that lapel pin mean? What is that?
That is the emblem that the FBI whistleblowers have developed. It is what we call ourselves. We are called the Suspendables. And it started on a lark. It started as something where we sort of joked around and said that we have an interesting set of skills. Maybe we'll go be mercenaries like the Expendables. But we're all suspended, so we'll be the Suspendables. And then Alan Fuhr at the New York Times, the old gray lady, decided to write a hit piece in which he invoked the name the Suspendables as some sort of derogatory term. And we decided to lean into it. And so what your folks need to know, that being a suspendable is about doing the right thing at the right time, in the right way, and for the right reasons. And for that reason, Steve Baker is a suspendable, which is why we were proud to hand him that lapel. And we were honored that he wore it today in front of court. And he refused to dress like an unemployed gamer coming from his mom's basement wearing shorts and sandals. He dressed like a man and an upstanding person of honor like he is.
So I would like to ask you for one of those pins just for the museum, and if you would allow me to have a secondary, I'd love to wear it myself in solidarity with all of you.
Happy to, and those all go to support a fellow FBI whistleblower who's been unpaid for a year and a half. You can go to www.the-suspendables.com.
I want to, after the show, I want to talk to you about coming on the radio tomorrow or on Monday and talk about him. Because I think we can help him, with his pay situation. You personally saw the FBI weaponized in the wake of January 6th. We know now DHS and CISA have been weaponized. Let me go back to Christian nationalism. Do you see this the same way that I do, that these are important labels they're putting on people to classify them for Patriot Act stuff?
I do. And this is something that there was a trial balloon about with the radical traditional Catholic memo that was circulated from the FBI Richmond field office. At that time, they were setting the narrative for white Christian nationalism, and it didn't take. So now they've sort of evolved it and just said Christian nationalism. And what you have to understand is that the FBI and the Homeland Security have put out a strategic intelligence assessment that says that racially motivated violent extremism is connected to religion, to religious motivations. So just having a Christian belief might not necessarily make you a white supremacist, but it makes you primed for that. And the FBI has a categorization for that and will willingly open an assessment to investigate you. And then when that happens, they get all the tools in the toolbox to provoke you into something where they can say that you are a domestic terrorist.
NBC actually labeled people Christian terrorist if they believe the founding was a divine event and that your rights come from God and not the government. Well, almost every American I know, and I know a lot of people that don't believe that, but a lot of people I know believe that very thing. How does that make them dangerous as opposed to just an American?
It doesn't, but the categorization doesn't matter. The FBI has the latest evolution of domestic terrorism, and that is the agave, the anti-government, anti-authority violent extremist. And if you read the assessment that the FBI and DHS have put out, it describes an agave. The profile of an agave is someone who has just the mere perception of government overreach or negligence or illegitimacy. I would think that there are 56 men who signed a document called the Declaration of Independence who would fit the bill and would therefore find themselves in the crosshairs of an FBI domestic terrorist investigation.
Steve, I've been watching this for a very long time, and it is frightening on how fast it is coming now, and how blatant it is, how they say these things out in the open. We have had, since they started targeting people, my Facebook page is down 95% of traffic, 95%. At the same time, I'm up in all other metrics, Facebook, YouTube, all down. Everything else, I'm having one of the best years of my career. I don't believe that is by coincidence. I think that is part of the stifling. But what concerns me more is the fact that Tucker Carlson has been spied upon. I believe we are being spied upon and eavesdropped on. What does the public need to know about how deep this goes?
The collusion between big tech and the federal government is symbiotic to an extent that people cannot possibly fathom. It's probably pretty providential, the fact that your Facebook traffic has gone down, because there's something called Operation Bronze Griffin, which is a confidential human source who works for Facebook and Meta and provides people's private communications to the FBI without a warrant, without a subpoena, without their consent. There's a backdoor that's been created to do that, and it's frequently out of context statements, but once the FBI has them and they're able to open up their intelligence assessment, and then they're off and running. They have their man, and they can just find a crime, and if they can't find a crime, they will provoke one.
You still hopeful that this is going to be exposed and out in the open, and that people will
I wouldn't
matter?
be doing what I'm doing every day, Glenn. This has been the cause. I'm a believer in the book of Esther, born for such a time as this. I believe that doing the right thing at the right time, in the right way, and for the right reasons is why I'm here, and I will continue to fight as long as God gives me the breath to take.
Suspendable? God bless you, Steve Friend. Thank you.
God bless.